Greetings, geometry students. This is Dr. Heron talking to you about part one of the logic, very short logic unit, talking about conditional and converse statements to start with. Okay, conditional statement literally says if something, then something else. Okay, if then you say something, then something else. Okay, so it's often said if P, then Q, where P is called the hypothesis and Q is called the conclusion of the statement. It sort of implies like if the first part is true, then the second part is true, but not always. But for right now, I'm not focused on whether or not something is true. I'm focused on being able to identify which is which. So for number one, you want to circle the hypothesis, underline the conclusion. Two lines are perpendicular, then they intersect. So if this part, then this part. Okay, so this would be my hypothesis, and this would be my conclusion. So then if the weather is nice, then I will play outside. So the weather is nice would be my hypothesis, then I will play outside. That's going to be my conclusion. So part three, if I complete my homework in class, then I don't have to do it at home. So the hypothesis is I do all my homework in class, then I don't have to do it at home. So now, if we start taking some English statements and put them into conditional statements, again, I need if something, then something else. So I'm going to say if the person is a hockey player, so if the person is a hockey player, then they have a stick. Okay, so if the person is a hockey player, that's kind of this first part, then they have a stick, that would be your second part. So number two, musicians play instruments. So if the person is a musician, then they play an instrument. Attempt 3. Wow. Having all sorts of trouble for spelling right now. My apologies. Instrument. Boom. So this last one, yes, it's absolute nonsense. It's an absolute farce, but I don't really care. I'm more looking for, can you take this and make it into a conditional statement? So I can say if, I don't know why I said that, if the animal is an elephant, then it is purple. Of course, there are no purple elephants. So of course, this is absolutely not true, but I don't really care about the truth value right now. I'm more looking at, can I make it into a conditional statement? So now, a converse basically says flip the hypothesis and the conclusion. They switch places, okay? So if I'm going to say, if I am cold, then I put on a sweatshirt. So the converse would that be, if I put on a sweatshirt, then I was cold. Or I am cold. Would probably be a better one. So if there are clouds, then it is cold. So the converse would be, if it is cold, then there are clouds. So all I'm doing is switching those two. That's it. Just converse just means switch. All right? So if I take this, bears hibernate in the winter, I need to write that as conditional in a converse. So I'm going to say if the bears are hibernating, then it is winter The converse, if it is winter, then bears are hibernating. That's going to be my forwards, kind of forwards and backwards. All right, so if it's true one way, if it might be true the other way. So if it's just written one way, then flip it around. So an inverse statement goes back to the conditional statement. So it says if then, except now you're taking the negative of it. You're saying if not P, then not Q. So they're saying if the opposite of P, then the opposite of Q. So if I said if it is Tuesday, then it is snowing. So I'm going to say if it is not Tuesday, or I say if it isn't Tuesday, then it is not snowing. So the second one's a little tricky. If you don't do your work, then you will be behind. So if I put not don't, if you don't not do your work, that doesn't make any sense. So I kind of say the opposite. So the opposite of don't do your work is if you do your work. So if you do your work, then you will not be behind. You need to say the opposite of what's there. Okay, that's basically what an inverse statement is. You're saying the opposite of what's there. So the last part here would be considered a contrapositive. A contrapositive is basically taking a converse of the inverse, okay? You're switching the hypothesis and conclusion. So it's a little bit like converse, except you're going to use not. So a quick example, if it is the weekend, then the school is closed. Inverse, if it is not the weekend, then the school is not closed. So now for contrapositive, these two switch places. So if the school is not closed, then it is not the weekend. So if I take a look here, I have an if-then statement, I have a conditional statement, write the inverse and the contrapositive. So the inverse, if two angles are not congruent, then they are not vertical. Okay, and that's the symbol for congruent. Okay, it's an equal sign with a little tilde above it. So then for the contrapositive, I flip that around. If two angles, because that's the subject of this, are not vertical, then they are not congruent. And again, I'm not looking for a truth value of this. I'm not saying, hey, are these true or false? Okay, so I'm trying to kind of put these all together. So let's consider this. Yeah. I'm going to take the lion as the king of the jungle, and I'm going to take this all the way through. Conditional, converse, inverse, contrapositive. So first one, if the animal is a lion, then it is king of the jungle. So the converse of that, switch it around, if the animal is king of the jungle, then it's a lion. So inverse is where I take the original and I use not. If the animal is not a lion, then it is not king of the jungle. And lastly, contrapositive, if the animal is not king of the jungle, then it is not a lion. So those are kind of your four statements. So you need to be able to take any kind of statement I give you and put it into all four of these, okay? So conditional, if then, if not, then not, if not, then not, okay? So, all right, conditional, switch, not, switch, and not. So those are kind of the ways you're going to do those, okay? All right, so come talk to me with questions and make sure that you take your time. I apologize in advance for your hands getting tired.